were sent to road camps, and another 2,000 were forced to walk in the prairies on sugar beet farms. 163. In the wake of the attack, 15 Medals of Honor, 51 Navy Crosses, 53 Silver Stars, 4 Navy and Marine Corps medals, 1 Distinguished Flying Cross, 4 Distinguished Service Crosses, 1 Distinguished Service Medal, and 3 Bronze Star medals were awarded to the American servicemen who distinguished themselves in combat at Pearl Harbor. 164. Additionally, a special military award, the Pearl Harbor Commemorative Medal, was later authorized for all military veterans of the attack. Nihao incident. Petty Officer Shigenori Nishikaichi's aircraft 10 days after it crashed. Japanese planners of the Pearl Harbor attack had determined that some means were required for rescuing flyers whose aircraft were damaged too badly to return to the carriers. The island of Nihao, only 30 minutes by air from Pearl Harbor, was designated as their rescue point. During the second wave, 10 fighter flown by Petty Officer Shigenori Nishikaichi of the Hiryu was damaged in the attack on Wheeler, so he flew to the rescue point. The aircraft was further damaged on the crash landing. Nishikaichi was helped from wreckage by one of the native Hawaiians, who, aware of the tension between the United States and Japan, took the pilot's pistol maps, codes, and other documents. The island's residents had no telephones or radios and were completely unaware of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Nishikaichi enlisted the support of 3 Japanese-American residents in an attempt to recover the documents. During the ensuing struggles, Nishikaichi was killed, and a Hawaiian civilian was wounded. 1 collaborator committed suicide, and his wife and the 3rd collaborator were sent to prison. The ease with which the local ethnic Japanese residents had apparently gone to Nishikaichi's assistance was a source of concern for many and tended to support those who believed that local Japanese could not be trusted. 165. Strategic implications. Admiral Hara Tadeuchi summed up the Japanese result by saying, "We won a great tactical victory at Pearl Harbor and thereby lost the war." 166. While the attack accomplished its intended objective, it turned out to be largely unnecessary. Unbeknownst to Yamamoto, who conceived the original plan, the U.S. Navy had decided as far back as 1935 to abandon charging across the Pacific towards the Philippines in response to an outbreak of war, in keeping with the evolution of Plan Orange. 40. The U.S. instead adopted Plan Dog in 1940. Which emphasized keeping Fijian out of the eastern Pacific and away from the shipping lanes to Australia, while the U.S. concentrated on defeating Nazi Germany. 167. Fortunately for the United States, the American aircraft carriers were untouched, otherwise the Pacific Fleet's ability to conduct offensive operations would have been crippled for a year or more, given no diversions from the Atlantic Fleet. As it was, the U.S. Navy was left with no choice but to rely on carriers and submarines, the very weapons with which the U.S. Navy halted and eventually reversed the Japanese advance. While 6 of the 8 battleships were repaired and returned to service, their relatively low speed and high fuel consumption limited their deployment, and they served mainly in shore bombardment roles, their only major action being the Battle of Surigao Strait in October 1944. A major flaw of Japanese strategic thinking was a belief that the ultimate Pacific battle would be fought by battleships, in keeping with the doctrine of Captain Alfred Thayer Mahan. As a result, Yamamoto, and his successors, poured battleships for a decisive battle that never happened. 62. 168. The Japanese confidence in their ability to win a quick victory meant that they neglected Pearl Harbor's Navy repair yards, oil tank farms, submarine base, and old headquarters building. 62. All of these targets were omitted from Gendar's list, yet they proved more important than any battleship to the American war effort in the Pacific. The survival of the repair shops and fuel depots allowed Pearl Harbor to maintain logistical support to the U.S. Navy's operations. 169, 170, such as the Doolittle Raid and the battles of the Coral Sea and Midway. It was submarines that immobilized the Imperial Japanese Navy's heavy ships and brought Japan's economy to a virtual standstill by crippling the importation of oil and raw materials. By feed of 1942, the amount of raw materials brought in was cut in half, to a disastrous 10 million tons, while oil was almost completely stopped. NB 22. Lastly, the basement of the old administration building was the home of the cryptanalytic unit, which contributed significantly to the Midway ambush and the submarine force's success. 171. Retrospective debate on American intelligence. USS Arizona Memorial. Ever since the Japanese attack, there has been debate as to how and where the United States had been caught unaware, and how much armed when American officials knew of Japanese plans and related topics. As early as 1924, Chief of U.S. Air Service Mason Patrick displayed a concern for military vulnerabilities in the Pacific, having sent General Billy Mitchell on a survey of the Pacific and the East. Patrick called Mitchell's subsequent report, which identified vulnerabilities in Hawaii, a theoretical treatise on employment of air power in the Pacific, which, in all probability, undoubtedly will be of extreme value some 10 or 15 years hence. 172. At least 2 naval war games, one in 1932 and another in 1936, proved that Pearl was vulnerable to such an attack. Admiral James Richardson was removed from command shortly after protesting President Roosevelt's decision to move the bulk of the Pacific Fleet to Pearl Harbor. 173, 174. The decisions of military and political leadership to ignore these warnings have contributed to conspiracy theories. Several writers, including decorated World War II veteran and journalist Robert Stinnett, author of Day of Deceit, and former United States Rear Admiral Robert Alfred Theobald, author of The Final Secret of Pearl Harbor, The Washington Background of the Pearl Harbor Attack, have argued that various parties high in the U.S. and British governments knew of the attack in advance and may even have let it happen or encouraged it in order to force the U.S. into war via the so-called backdoor. However, this conspiracy theory is rejected by mainstream historians. 175, 176, 177, 178, NB 23, in popular culture. See also: Air warfare of World War II, bombing of Dublin in World War II, bombings of Switzerland in World War II, casus belli, Japanese attack on Howland Island, list of attacks on U.S. territory, list of Medal of Honor recipients for the attack on Pearl Harbor, list of United States Navy ships present at Pearl Harbor, the 7th of December, 1941. Nagakita. National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Operation K. Pacific Theater aircraft carrier operations during World War II. Pearl Harbor National
Good. Let's stop the video. Now the sun is down. That's super nice. I like that because I'm tired of heating, and the sun is 8:30. I think maybe go to discount supermarket, buy a little bit candy. I think I do that. Let's close the curtains. Yes, so I will go now, leaving my apartment, and then I will upload later when I get back home. So I will read some more, but not tonight, it's too hot. I will do it tomorrow.